basically 3 organisms today. And so I just want to talk briefly about them. So the first one is Hydra. And Hydra is a cnidarian. And as we talked about, cnidarians have some characteristics like tentacles with stinging cells, radial symmetry. The Hydra is pretty small. It's a few millimeters big, not microscopic, but you can see them in the dishes that we have up front. But you're going to use a microscope to see it more closely. It's a cnidarian. This is what one looks like. This is illuminated with a green light. It's not really green here. But you can see the tentacles. You can see the mouth is right in the middle of those tentacles. Has a long stalk-like body, and then a basal disc at the bottom that it sort of attaches to things with. Okay? So there's radial symmetry, one body opening. Basically stings and immobilizes its prey with its stinging cells and with its tentacles, and then puts that food into its tube-like body for digestion. Breaks down whatever it ate, and then any waste comes back out of that same opening. They eat very small other invertebrates sometimes, or protists, things like that. And so those stinging cells are called nematocysts. Now you're not really going to be handling them, they're in the water, but they're too small to bother you. But they are useful in immobilizing very, very small prey. And Hydra reproduction, we talked a little bit about reproduction in cnidarians. And Hydra can reproduce in 2 different ways, either asexually or sexually. The asexual means of reproduction of Hydra is called budding. They often reproduce through budding when food is abundant, when they have a lot of energy available, and that they can reproduce. And this is basically a small section of the Hydra starts growing into a new Hydra, and it breaks off and becomes its own organism. It starts as just sort of a little outgrowth on the stalk of the Hydra, grows larger until it splits off.
And so it's sort of like growing in trees? Like
Kind of, yeah. And Hydra and other cnidarians also sometimes reproduces sexually. Okay, so generally this is in times when there's not as much energy available. Often in the winter, early in the spring, Hydra will reproduce sexually. And this is true of lots of invertebrates. Most are what they're called hermaphroditic. And what that means is that each individual has both male and female reproductive organs. Each individual Hydra, or planaria we'll see also, has the ability to produce both sperm cells and egg cells. But generally they don't self-fertilize. So a sperm cell from one Hydra doesn't fertilize its own egg cells.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Because that doesn't, why does that not make sense?
because then it's not
It'd be,
sexual reproduction?
Well, yeah.
it'd very much be the same thing.
Right, because it doesn't include the advantages of sexual reproduction, which are an increase in what? Diversity and variation, that you have the mixing of genes and traits into new combinations. Self-fertilization doesn't allow that to happen. So often they'll find a mate, they'll exchange sperm cells with each other, and sperm cells from one Hydra will fertilize the eggs of another, and vice versa, and then you do have that mixing of genetic information. So they can reproduce both sexually and asexually. This is another, you don't have this slide, this is another organism we're going to see today. This is a Daphnia, it's a tiny, tiny crustacean. So what phylum is that? Arthropod, it's an arthropod, crustacean. And it's very small, a couple millimeters big. You could see them swimming around, but again, you could see them better in the microscope. They're kind of neat. They're often prey for Hydra. But what's one interesting thing is that they have a sort of transparent exoskeleton. So you actually see their organs inside them. You could see their heart, which is back here, beating, moving blood around their body. You could see the muscles that move their little appendages used for swimming. So they're kind of cool to see. And so we're going to look at those today. All right. So that's all I wanted to do in your notes. The other organism we're going to look at that